Hello and welcome to HD Philosophy, the channel where we take some time with the classics to bring our lives into high definition. And this is episode 12 of the Gospel Meditations, where I outline and discuss the insights from my family breakfast as we meditate on this week's gospel message. So sit back and relax and enjoy the rank match as we meditate on Genesis 3, 9 through 13, which happened right after Eve was deceived by the serpent and ate from the tree, then gave Adam that same fruit.
Let's go!
But the Lord God called to the man and said to him, "Where are you?" He said, "I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself." He said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat?" The man said, "The woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree, and I ate." Then the Lord God said to the woman, "What is this that you have done?" The woman said, "The serpent tricked me, and I ate." So this week's sermon was really focusing on blame and shame and how those two are linked. But first the focus was on Adam, because Adam was the one who God called first. He was the one who kind of took the full brunt of the initial blame. Well, why is that so? Well, if you go into Genesis and you review when Eve ate from the apple, you come to see that Adam was standing right there. You see? And while Adam hadn't sinned yet, although my daughter and I had a fun discussion about that, Adam definitely let something go that he should have protected Eve against. You see? We all draw our boundaries, and there's this wonderful line: good fences make good neighbors. You need to be able to draw your fence and draw your border. And in this sense, this was Adam's job. It was his responsibility. And he let the snake corrupt Eve. Now, as a father, this resonates very deeply with me, because there are many times where I have to stand in and I have to say, "Leave, get out of here. I don't want to see your face around here ever again." I have to protect my wife, protect my daughter, even protect my son many times against these kinds of threats. And I think that's one of the issues I have with people who are overly tolerant, Because as a philosopher, understanding first principles, when you decide to do something, when you decide to be an expert at something or aim at something as your life's passion, you are cutting out everything else you could be doing at that time. So you are drawing an imaginary border on all of your interests, and you are laser focused on this aim. That's how you achieve it, So there is already an intolerance for everything else in order for you to succeed. So tolerance isn't an inherent good, it's an instrumental one. The way we use it is what makes it good or bad. It isn't inherently good or bad. And in this sense, God went straight to Adam because it was Adam who was supposed to be the cover of Eve. That's what Pastor Sheldon talked about in this sermon. It was Adam's job to be the cover. Now, my daughter and I talked about this, and she was like, "Well, see, doesn't that mean he sinned then? If you kind of forego your responsibilities, isn't that a form of sin?" And I think in a very deep sense, she's right, Foregoing your responsibility is a kind of missing the mark. But the way Pastor Sheldon talked about how Christ would become the second Adam, the point here is actually Adam hasn't sinned yet in order for that comparison to work. Because the way Pastor Sheldon put it is, where Adam bit from the apple and then blamed Eve and then blamed God, Jesus didn't. He took on the full brunt of the responsibility of sin in order to die for ours, so that way we know the way to the Lord. But see, that's something I think a lot of people seem to misunderstand. The initial sin or the initial mistake of Adam was not protecting Eve from the serpent. And I have to ask people out there who are kind enough to listen to a philosophy professor discuss these things, what kind of responsibilities are you ignoring right now? What kind of snakes in the garden are you allowing into your protected spaces? Because for me, those are the villains right there. You know, those who have been watching this channel for some time, they know I like to deep dive villains. I don't deep dive villains because I worship them. I deep dive villains because they are the warning signs. I like Darth Vader because he is a warning of what happens when I become an idol unto myself and I start worshiping power. Vegeta is a fantastic warning of my own pride of being a strong male, a Hawaiian man, superseding my love for the Lord himself, you see? I like these things because they are excellent warning signs. I still think the Joker is one of the best villains that has ever come out of fiction because he is chaos incarnated. He is that which you can't ignore. We all have responsibilities that we need to shoulder. It's just the one that allowed sin to come into the garden. Well, that was Adam's responsibility right there. And that's why in Romans 5:12, Paul talks about Adam as the one who brought death into the world. Adam's sin brought death, and so death spread everywhere to everyone. And on this, my wife had a wonderful, brilliant insight. She was like, well, you see, God built Adam from the world and then breathed life into Adam. But Eve came from Adam, where God put Adam to sleep, pulled out a rib, sewed it back up or healed it, and then brought Eve into existence. So Eve came from Adam, and Adam was made of the world. And she was like, you know, I think if the serpent went straight for Adam, the serpent wouldn't have been successful. The serpent needed to corrupt a part of Adam, something that came from him first, which was Eve. And then Eve was able to corrupt Adam because Eve came from Adam. And that way, it was able to spread into the world. And this is so absolutely brilliant because this is exactly how it happens to all of us. Sin needs some kind of familiarity. It needs something to grasp onto, some kind of truth that exists in the lie in order to take hold. As it says in Genesis, when the serpent was talking to Eve, just consider the fact that God may not be telling you the truth. And as soon as Eve considered that, well, then she was doomed. She had already taken the apple without knowing it yet. So I think she's absolutely right here. You need to consider these things first. It's a lie, but you just believe in the lie because you think your understanding of the truth supersedes God in this instance. That's why she was able to consider it. If I'm considering something, what that means is I have to have a part of doubt on the other side in order to consider it. I teach for a living. It's very difficult to teach somebody who believes they know everything. No new knowledge can arrive if they don't have some kind of doubt first. And in this instance, what was the doubt? God told them they would die if they ate from the truth. And the serpent's like, oh, you're not going to die. You're not going to die in the sense of the death that you think, as in like cease to exist. But God's like, no, you're going to die spiritually. You're actually going to die now because you've eaten from this fruit. You've become a part of the world now, subjugated to the world. And the things of the material world die. So it's the spiritual death, as Pastor Sheldon said. That's what sin does, everyone. It relies on the fact that you think you know better. And then it twists that knowledge to subjugate you to the world. Man who was created to be rulers of nature ends up becoming subjugated to nature. So now to the guilt and the shame. Because in the garden, they feel shame. Well, what is the shame? That's when judgment has found its correct source. We like to think people are shameless, but I guarantee you that's such a small percentage of the world. So living righteously is a great way to shield yourself against that kind of guilt and shame. I was thinking about this because I see these short videos of these couples, and the guy will take the phone of the girlfriend and she is freaking out the shame that just pours over her. Oh, he's going to see this text. He's going to see what I'm doing here and there. And it's a wave over them, and they could see their entire world crashing. Well, that's because judgment found its correct source, didn't it? I never knew that existed. My wife takes my phone all the time, and I think nothing of it. And then I realized it's because I'm not using that phone for nefarious ends. I have nothing to hide. And when you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to feel guilty for. Therefore, judgment doesn't find its correct source, and I don't feel shame. But boy, do I have a long relationship with shame in other areas. There are many times where I would argue with my wife, and I know I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong. I just don't want her to know I'm wrong. So I'll tie her up in argumentation. I'll start focusing on semantics, basically lying, because my own ego won't let her know that I am wrong. This is something I did very early in our relationship together. But then I realized when the target was just, well, sometimes being wrong means we find that snake in the garden, especially when it came to parenting. You see, sometimes I'm right and sometimes she's right. But we both have a standard on what we think is right for the child. But what's right for the child relies on more than just our opinion, because it needs to be at the right time as well for the child to be able to receive it. What I'm trying to express here is that we got very good at being able to argue where the aim was what was best for our child. So our egos were outside of it. That blame and shame was gone because both of us were firing in the right direction, what was good for the child. And sometimes she'll be right, and I'm like, okay, yeah, leniency is needed in this moment. And there are other times where leniency wasn't needed in that moment, and more of a harsher, sterner position was required. But the only way we were able to discover which one of us was right was both of us being able to have a conversation where it wasn't about our own ego. It wasn't about me being right or her being right. It was about what was the truth of the situation. You see, we prioritized the truth, not our own egos. And I can't tell you how many times that those things just led to fruitful exchanges because we didn't make false idols of ourselves and we elevated the correct thing at the correct time. In the discussion about guilt and shame, my wife hit the nail on the head again. The reason why the serpent was able to deceive Eve is because Eve thought she knew better than God. And when I asked, that makes sense because according to the Bible, what is the foundation of all sin? And she was like, pride. The idea that you think you know better. As a student of history, student of philosophy, there's one question that is asked of great men and women that moves mountains. And that question is, where did I go wrong? It's such a humbling experience with powerful implications because it allows you to discover the proverbial snake that's been hiding in your garden.
Thank you for watching HD Philosophy. Like, share, and subscribe.